Mhm.
Grind culture says that everything is about the here and the now. And it's about being a part of these systems that treat our bodies like machines.
Shanae, I am so happy and excited and grateful that you're here on the Unleash Your Ambition podcast. Can you share who you are, what you do, and how you help people?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm Shanae Calhoun. I am the principal, the CEO, the boss lady of Willow Consulting. And Willow Consulting was birthed out of my passion to support Black and Brown women in leadership, in their leadership journey to build thriving teams and resilient organizations. That's my passion. And in doing that, I'm a coach, a facilitator, and a trainer.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And also, thank you so much for the work that you do, because we need more leaders. We need to develop and cultivate more leaders, because I don't know, things are a little crazy right now in this timeline. I tell you.
It's wild out here in these streets, that's for sure.
It's like, what is going on? The great thing is that, you're playing your role to making a difference, a positive difference, which I think is something that is in a perfect alignment with, the podcast and you being on here, which is why I wanted you on here, because I'm just really interested in your journey and the work that you do and how you do it in your own unique way. I know that we have some ideas about what we're going to talk about today. What do you feel called to share the most today?
Well, I have to say, I resonate so much with the work that you're doing and Unleash Your Ambition, because I believe that in my own journey, I had to reconcile what that meant for me. And so a lot of what I'm doing today is birthed out of my own personal experience. For me, and unleashing my ambition was wrapped up in my journey to resist grind culture. I have this framework called Revive and Thrive. And there's nothing super earth shattering about the core tenets of that. Like, it's stuff that we probably heard before. But the premise is that rest is an act of resistance. And so as we talk about, my journey and how I got into this, well, honey, that is really the core, that I had to figure out how to do this very challenging but important work, and still be healthy, still raise my children, still have a family. But that is really one of the topics that I'm most passionate in speaking about.
This topic, I don't think can be talked about enough, because yes, it's something that we know, but it's not about what we know. It's what we're doing and how we can integrate that into our individual lives, because there is no cookie cutter way to do things, but
that's right.
Your framework really helps people customize it in a way that's going to work for them, which I think, what I believe is, like, with a framework, is that that's what makes it so effective, because you went through this framework first.
I appreciate you drawing that out, because I think that is what helps make coaching transformative, is that you have walked along a certain path that others are walking along. And there's nothing like being able to open up to someone who has done the thing. And so our journeys may not be identical, but there's certainly common ground and common experience. And so thank you for drawing that out, because that's really where my passion comes from in all of this.
That's another reason why you got on my radars, because I know that you have this framework and it's effective and it's going to help guide people, because you went through it first. And because there are some things that, yes, you can guide people on that you haven't experienced, but you're right. Like, it's even more powerful when somebody has walked the path, before someone. I don't know what it is. It's like the word transformational, like you there's a deeper experience and a connection that you have with the people that you're working with. When you were putting yourself through this framework first, did you even know that you were doing it, or were you just trying to figure things out because there wasn't a model?
You already know. You already know. Your question is hitting the nail on the head. No, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just out here trying to survive. I remember first of all, falling in love with my work, which at the time was as a grassroots community organizer, fighting for ways that my community can be better. I'm in the community and building community and working on campaigns that are exhausting. And any community organizer will tell you, like, the work is the work. In fact, I have a shirt on today. I did not do this on purpose, but my shirt today says rise and grind. As an act of resistance is not about like rebuking the grind, okay? Because I'm here for it any day of the week. I love being able to juggle balls. I love being able to be an efficient leader and an effective leader and just knock things off the list and get stuff done. So I'm here for the rise and grind. I want to be strategic about that so that I'm not just surviving, but I'm thriving. And that's what I was trying to work out. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't have a model for it. But what it came down to was, am I able to do this work that I love and be healthy and have a family? And because no one has a prescription for how to do that, it's trial and error. I'm just going to cut and paste and see what works until I have something that is sustainable. And so, I had to ask myself, like, how can I make the job that I'm doing more efficient? How can I take something that takes me 90 minutes to do and cut it down to 45 minutes? Or what does it feel like for me to have a to-do list that is manageable enough in my day that when I check the last thing off, I'm done. And I can transition, pick up my baby girl from daycare and go have dinner. What does it look like to prioritize my vacation and my off days in a planning session in advance, as opposed to ending up in June and July and being like, oh, I kind of want to take some time off. And I hadn't planned to do so because I wanted to do the work, but I also equally held my wellness. I had to make adjustments that weren't always popular and that I didn't have someone before me saying, hey, this is how you can do it.
I know there's someone listening or watching this that is just, they want to make these changes, but they don't know how. They've even tried things before, but it's just not working. That's why I say, like, cookie cutter methods just really don't work for everybody, because you gotta really know what their individual desires are, where they're at right now, even maybe what thoughts are keeping them in that loop of not making the change, even though they want to make the changes so badly. You brought up, doing things that weren't popular. And this is a common theme, especially if you don't have people within your proximity, maybe in your household, maybe in the workplace, maybe in your neighborhood. Sometimes people look at you like, what are you doing? And they don't realize, like, you're paving the way for a future that you've envisioned for yourself and your loved ones. And because we are conditioned to really just think about the now. Very little focus on about the future. And I could say that is by design, if I want to be a little controversial here, but I don't even think it is controversial.
No, that is what grind culture is. Grind culture says that everything is about the here and the now. And it's about being a part of these systems that treat our bodies like machines.
Yeah.
And how many machines do we have in our home that run 24/7?
I have at least 10 I can think of.
and that's it. So, hey, say the thing. I support you in saying the thing because
I mean, that's why I needed to remove myself from that, because even before I was even aware of that, I knew that there was something off. But I just didn't have the expansion or the knowledge or even the awareness around any of that. But pulling yourself out of the hustle and grind culture, it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? When you first start doing it, I mean, your mind's going to tell you one thing, people are telling you other things. Can you share more about that? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. The first thing that came to mind when you were describing that is the guilt. There's so much guilt that comes with that. And if I were just going to think about, my own experience as a young Black woman, an executive leader, a mother, a partner, a minister, a volunteer, a board member, as soon as we start establishing boundaries, let's be honest, actually, first, the guilt comes from within. We think that we're cutting ourselves off from something that deserves our love and nurture and effective leadership. And, I had to speak to myself and say, it's okay for me to set this boundary. Okay. And then once we step outside of ourselves, yeah, we do have the people around us who don't understand all the balls that we juggle. And they're saying, oh, don't pull back from this thing. You just got to plan a little bit better. So aside from containing your own guilt, then you then have to have a posture of confidence with the people that you are in relationship with. And they will trust you. Your confidence will lead them to trust you and to adjust.
I know change can be scary for a lot of people. Even changing the things that no longer serve you, no longer benefit you. It's just like we got to break those chains, for sure. The battle starts within. You bring up, shame. When you look back, do you realize, like, what was I ashamed for? Like, it seems like all the conditioning, all these layers that we have, we're so complex, right? Our minds are so complex. It always fascinates me. But the shame, why? Especially if we're deciding to do something that we know is going to benefit us in the long run. We know that it's going to benefit our loved ones, because it's not for an unhealthy, selfish reason. It's to create a better future. It's to live a better life. It's to make a better impact, or a greater impact, So it's really fascinating how that shame comes in, and you really have to self-coach yourself pretty much. You have to self-coach yourself. You got to reframe your mind. You got to rewrite the story you're telling yourself in order to walk through that, because this is like probably the biggest part of the challenge in walking away from the hustle and grind culture, especially when you don't know any other way, but you see examples of other people out there, like, how are they doing that? But if you don't have access to it, you're right. You pretty much got to fumble a little while until you start figuring out what's going to work for you.
What you're saying is what the start of the journey looks like. It can be uncomfortable, and it can even be a little messy. You said something about even needing to sort of self-coach yourself, right? My pastor used to say, I'm gonna talk to my own self. But an extension of that is building community around you that can also say the things that maybe you're not ready to say to yourself. And so when I talk about resisting grind culture, there's really 3 steps that you can begin to take. And maybe they're cyclical, right? Like maybe you do step 1 a couple of times, and maybe you do all 3, and then you go back and start over. But I believe that our best chance at resisting this grind culture that we're a part of is by 1, finding community. That means, a couple of friends or professionals that are in your inner circle, people that you trust, people that you can have straight talk with. Find community with them and be on that journey together, so that they can be the ones sometimes to say, hey, sis, do you have to take on that commitment this week? So finding community is really important. Once you have some parts of an accountability circle, then you can really start to take inventory. Where are the areas in my life and in my wellness where I can begin to either establish boundaries or create opportunity to care for myself. So taking inventory is the second thing that I think it's really essential to do. And then lastly, once you've identified areas of opportunity, or once you've identified places where you want to establish boundaries, it's important to then think about building some identity around those things. And that means that we have to establish some, what I like to call healthy habits. So finding community, taking inventory, and then finally building some identity around that by developing some habits that can help lift you up out of that grind culture and into rest as an act of resistance.
I love your framework, by the way. And
Thank
as
you.
you go through it, it's three steps or three parts. And I know hearing it, for those of you listening and watching, it sounds like, oh yeah, that's easy. Well, it's simple, but it's not easy,
There
because
you go.
there are layers within those steps. It's going to require some work. It's going to require you doing things differently. How has community impacted you, Shanae?
Man, now that's a girls' night out conversation. Has literally meant the world to my journey. It has literally, it made my journey, and to go it alone could have broken my journey. It wasn't until I got into a close-knit community of people who had the same goals as I did. It wasn't until I got into that circle that I realized what I need. I got the clarity about what I needed, right? And so it's in those spaces that you can find the clarity you need. You can find the confidence that there's nothing like sis gassing me up. Yes, get me ready to do the thing. That's what I find in community, right? And so, yeah, it has absolutely been, it's step one because it makes step 2 and 3 so much easier, so much more manageable, so much more realistic. And that's what I want to provide. That's what I want to add to the people in my community and the people that I'm connected to. I want to be part of your community, and that can be as a coach. But also, I want to create spaces for small groups. Like, I want to be a springboard for other collectives to find one another and be each other's community. And so, there's actually lots on the horizon, projects that I have in my mind that I'm trying to get on paper and out here in the world. And a lot of that literally centers around that word community.
That's an aspect that I think a lot of people leave out. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of my past clients who's actually getting ready to get into one of my containers again, because she stepped away from the community and now she's in a place where she feels isolated. She doesn't feel appreciated because she's in a work environment where they just really don't value her work, and it weighs her down. And the reason why I'm sharing this, because that is a real, I mean, when we had the conversation, that was a real moment. She was down to tears because she has vision. She has so much vision. She's amazing. She's also in the field of leadership. Like it just comes so easy to her, and she sees the toxicity of work environments because they're not developing. The people aren't developing great leaders in corporate America. And that right there, the reason why I'm sharing this for everyone here, and also a reminder to me, it's like you might have moments in your life where you feel busy or you're occupied with other things, and you start drawing away from the community that actually fueled you, or you think, I got this, which, you know what, I don't doubt that you do. This is I always say this. So for those of you who have heard me say this before, I'm going to say it again, is that we were not created to do things alone. We
That's
weren't,
it.
period.
Yep.
And we got to remind ourselves of that. So I love,
Yeah.
Shanae, I love that you have community built into your framework, built into your vision, your big audacious goals and visions, because
Yeah.
that's going to continue to create different types of environment for change and support, because we need community. If you, not you, Shanae, but for the
Yeah.
people that are watching and listening, if you feel that you don't have community and you are vibing with Shanae, you're fascinated by her, please reach out to her. I will leave all the information in the show notes. Shanae, I know that this time's already gone by quickly, but I want you
I
back on this
know.
podcast. You know why? Because there's so much more for us to talk about. So where can
That's
people
right.
connect
Yeah.
with you outside of the podcast?
So yeah, feeling so much gratitude in this moment. I would love for you to visit my website, ShanaeCalhoun.com. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at Willow Coaching or at Willow Consulting. That is another way that you can find me. I do have an offering on my website. It's if you look for the words revive and thrive, you will find that framework that I just shared with you. It's simple, but just kind of a reminder and an offering there. And then finally, can I tell you a secret? Like, this is like the first time I'm saying this out loud.
Ooh, yes.
I will be launching an online community that is meant to be this connection piece that we've been talking about.
For those of you watching and or listening, I will be sure to have Shanae's information in the show notes, or wherever you're listening or watching this, you should see it in the description. All right, Shanae, before we close out, I want you to give some final words of wisdom to that woman that's in the cycle of the hustle and grind. And she's been going at this for years and years because she just doesn't see any other way. What do you want to share with her?
Well, I want to leave you with some wise words that have certainly left an impression on me. And the words come from an author you may be familiar with, Octavia Butler. Octavia says, first, forget inspiration. Habit is more dependable. Habit will sustain you whether you're inspired or not. Habit will help you finish and polish whatever it is, that thing that you're passionate about and building. For Octavia, she says, finish and polish your stories, but put your passion in there. It is about building habits around the ways that we want to be healthy and well and thrive.